Alrighty, so a little news of the week episode on this Thursday evening. And by the way, I am doing this right near the end of the final Open Cup game between Tacoma Defiance versus Washington Athletic Club. And I know people are saying that, well, isn't this March Madness season? Yes, it is. As an MLS sicko and a US Open Cup sicko like myself, it's all about the US Open Cup now. March Madness can take a back seat. I'm there to watch the U.S. Open Cup, and I'm glad that we're going to have one more game that's going to be happening tomorrow to wrap up the first round of the U.S. Open Cup. But with that being said, I also was watching the Nations League semifinal between the U.S. versus Panama, which, by the way, I literally almost forgot that it was today. And this kind of just shows you how not only the attendance for this game was relatively low, but I'm pretty sure the viewership is probably going to be very low as well. I think this game was on Paramount Plus. I don't have Paramount Plus, so basically I watch it in a knockoff stream, and it was relatively hard watching it in a knockoff stream, especially with the way that knockoff stream I was using wasn't really that good. But obviously, as I mentioned, with the attendance, yeah, it was bad. And honestly, we knew this was going to be bad, especially one, when you play US game in LA, usually attendance are never that good. U.S. games in Southern California or even in the West Coast in general, unless you're in the hotbed known as the Cascadia region, U.S. games never do well when it comes to attendance. But what also kills it is the fact that you decided to put this game at 4 p.m. on a weekday in LA. Nobody's gonna go to that game when that is going to happen. I mean, I get that CONCACAF have done this before, where they decided to have these Nations League, or even in the Gold Cup, where they decided to have a doubleheader with the first game being in the afternoon, and then the second game of the doubleheader is being the night game. But I just think it's brutal if you're going to expect the fact that there's going to be good attendance in this one when you decide to do a doubleheader like that, and you decided to have the host nation in terms of doing this doubleheader playing the first meaningless game, and then you have Mexico, of course, playing the second meaningful game. I mean, I can understand why, because obviously I'm pretty sure the organizer knew that the Mexico game was going to draw the bigger crowd, especially with the way that LA is pretty much the second home of the Mexican national team, but it still doesn't make sense. The fact that this game is being played at 4 p.m. and again, just the way that the crowd is there. I mean, I've already heard a lot of reaction. It is really sad of how much it is in terms of the game pretty much playing empty SoFi Stadium. And again, people will say, of course, is due to the fact that the interest with the U.S. men's national team is definitely decreased as the year goes along, and I think this what makes it even more decreased after this shark loss against Panama. But it also doesn't help the fact that this game is taking place in the middle of the work day, and in a time where literally you knew it was asking for bad attendance in the first place. But talking about the loss, of course, against Panama, obviously there's been a lot of finger pointing that is going on of what went wrong for the U.S. in this one. I think a lot of the finger pointing has mainly toward the players, and rightfully so, because I think it's gotten to a point where I know there are definitely some bad decisions that Maurizio Pochettino made in this game, and I think this also kind of shows you that as good as a head coach as Maurizio Pochettino is, and as good of a rep that he has, one big problem with Maurizio Pochettino is that he always tends to crumble in big games like this. And while some might say a Nation League semifinal might not be like that kind of game, yeah, in a tournament game like that, we saw doing it is Tottenham days as well, or even doing his other coaching days with PSG and Chelsea, just not able to get the job done in these big final like that. There's no wonder why for in his coaching career, as successful as his coaching career has done, and he has really overperformed at places that he's done. He hasn't really got those club in terms of being uh uh being the team that can win multiple trophy when he was in charge. And I know in the international level it could be a little bit different, but really, when you look at the last couple of years under Greg Berhalter, where many U.S. fans hated him and want him out, and they got, of course, their wishes. But yeah, I mean, while the excitement of Maurizio Pochettino is a big name to come to this U.S. team, unfortunately, you just cannot shake off that big game late, late game choking label that it seems like he has had during his club level. But of course, again, besides that you also got to point out to the players as well. It is clear that this team has a mentality issue. I mean, with how talented that this team has had, and all this talks about how this is probably the most talented team the U.S. have ever had in their history. There's no way with this kind of talented team that this team should be at around the 80th minute mark. Only had 5 shots in the game, and didn't really had a shot on target until relatively late in this game. There's just no excuse in terms of that. There's clearly a mentality issue with this team, and if they don't fix this by the Gold Cup and have a good showing in the Gold Cup, there is definitely a lot of concern heading into the World Cup in 2026. And remember, that World Cup is going to be big for the U.S. because not only it's in home soil. I really think that if the U.S. does well in this World Cup, it will definitely catch the attention of the casual and really continue to grow this game. If they stagnate, then that could be a problem to a point where that World Cup that we see the next year. While it's very exciting to see the biggest soccer event being taking place here in the states, um, the big goal of this upcoming World Cup is definitely trying to continue to grow this game and get the casual to tune in, especially even in MLS as well and other league that is, and that's not going to help if the U.S. is going to stagnate like what they're doing. And you could even say that they kind of almost gone backwards when it comes to the progress that they made. I mean, as I said, under Greg Berhalter, this team never lose in the Nations League final. Under Greg Berhalter, they win multiple Gold Cup as well. If this team stagnate and go backwards like what we've seen lately with them getting grouped in Copa America and now suffering their first ever loss in the Nations League final and potentially not do well in the Gold Cup as well, there's definitely going to be a lot of concern about the fan interest and even more concern about what's going to happen with them performing in the World Cup on home soil. Now, talking about other news that is not related to the game, I actually spent a pretty long period and maybe a little bit longer talk about that game than I wanted to. But the first big news that we got to talk about is the USL. So it is official that they have voted that they're going to be implementing promotion and relegation. Now, they said that it could potentially happen as soon as 2028. We'll see about that. We'll see whether or not if it does happen. And there's no doubt that they are going to create a brand new league known as USL Division One, if I remember that's the name of the league, and that league is going to be as a top tier league, going to be going completely competitive when it comes to MLS. And again, I'm very interested to see with this news coming out and really down the line in terms of the American domestic soccer landscape. It could vastly change as we go along in these next decade or so, and especially if USL is able to implement this promotion relegation and find success to do so. That puts a lot of pressure on MLS to do something, and to a point where I have heard the rumors of potential merge. This could definitely happen, especially we have seen not just in other sports. Well, actually, in most sports that we've seen around this country, where a competitive league might be competing for their top division status, and eventually they of course would merge into one, and we'll see whether or not if that could be the case in the upcoming future. I mean, it's definitely exciting time when it comes to the American soccer landscape, but it'll be very interesting to see in the future that if USL is very successful, and I've said before that USL and MLS they've been going through for a bit of a war with each other for a long time now, and that war is just going to get even more feisty, especially down the years. If this promotion relegation is going to be successful, then MLS is gonna have something to say, or potentially there could be talk where we could see a merger in the future, and we might actually for once could have a promotion relegation in terms of being from the top tier of U.S. soccer all the way down to Division 3 of U.S. soccer, because the way that USL implement their promotion, it seems like they're going to go for 3 different tier, with League One being in the third tier, the championship being in the second tier, and the new Division 1 that they had, which I really hope they change that name. I really hope that they make it more interesting, or just copy what the what the England model does with them them calling it the Premier League, because apparently the English model, though, that we see is literally not only a big inspiration to USL, but clearly USL is copying that with the way that League One, just like the English model being the third tier, Championship being the second tier, then you might as well just call it the USL Premier Division now, and just copy the Premier League in England. That is. Now, Charlotte FC, they have signed Dean Smith to a new contract extension. This is not a big surprise. I mean, Dean Smith has done a really good job during his time with Charlotte FC. Really are revolutionized this team to be one of the best defensive team in the league as well. And with the good start that Charlotte has gotten in the beginning of the season, they know that they want to lock down their head coach to a long-term contract, so that there's going to be more success with in the years comes. Now, talking about some rumors as well, because despite the fact that I know we're in the beginning of the season, there are still some interesting transfer rumor that is floating around. Starting with the Houston Dynamo, they report to sign Czech international Andre Linger as their next number 10 DP. So obviously the Dynamo, they are in that active market in terms of finding a replacement for Hector Herrera. In fact, I think they could be one of the more active team in the summer transfer window. They got a lot of needs, this team, and it's been shown in the beginning of this season of how poor the start of the season they have gone. They clearly are not prepared heading into this season when it comes to the players that they need to be a competitive team. So with them potentially getting a DP number 10, and from a guy that he's currently I think he's currently playing in the Czech league right now with Slavia Prague. He did spend time in Eredivisie as well. Didn't really quite work out there as well. So we'll see whether or not this, of course, would work out. I mean, that's a huge shoes to fill in terms of the spot that Hector Herrera left with this Dynamo side, and if they do decide to sign him, we'll see whether or not if he can be a good replacement, especially with him labeled as a DP. And then Inter Miami, they continue their raid in terms of signing Argentine player by potentially signing another Argentine player in Baster Rodriguez from Racing. Now, apparently, he is a midfielder, which again, it kind of is a little confused that they decided to sign another midfielder, because I thought they were already stacked when it comes to their midfield core. But there's no doubt that, again, Inter Miami, they are a team that is fully in body in terms of being almost like an Argentine youth team, slash a former Barcelona team, with all those Barcelona boys beat on that team. But that also kind of doesn't help the fact that now people are asking, how in the world does Inter Miami still have an international spot? I mean, with the limit that international spots that teams, of course, get, obviously teams can, of course, still trade with international spot. How in the world does Inter Miami seems like they have an unlimited amount? But the truth is, they haven't really broken any rules on that. So I guess at the end of the day, they probably just had an international spot somewhere there in their pocket so that they can get another player, and once again continue to booster the midfield of this team. As much as they are very stacked when it comes to the midfield, with this team playing in so many competition, it is no surprise that they are going to keep adding to the max so that they can combat all these competition that they're going to be playing throughout the season. In fact, what's kind of crazy is that Inter Miami is actually not playing this weekend. It's going to be one of the rare times we see Inter Miami that is not playing on the weekend. Now, moving on in terms of next news, so Matt Hedges says that he has not announced his retirement, despite the fact that he was playing with Des Moines Menace along with other former MLS star in the U.S. Open Cup against Sporting KC2. Des Moines Menace, of course, won that game thanks to Sasha Kleshin scoring two penalty goals to get Des Moines Menace moving on into the next round. But yeah, it's interesting to see that Matt Hedges say that he's still sticking around. Now, if he's gonna get another chance in MLS, it's gotta be FC Dallas. You gotta say it has to be FC Dallas. Might be the team that is gonna give him one last shot, and especially with him being an FC Dallas legend, with him being there for such a long time, it would be just a fitting end to his career if he does retire with the club that he started, and are just very well loved in the FC Dallas fan base as well. So we'll see whether or not if Dallas is going to do so, and especially with Dallas needing some defensive help. And I know Matt Hedges is kind of way past his prime, but he still can be a good captain to this team and still bring the leadership at the back, which is something that, as I said, for Dallas, it's been a problem this season so far. They have not done very well when it comes to their defensive record early this season. And then moving on in the next news, we got Tani Oloshari winning the player of the week. Now, as much as I know Tani had a really good game against Sporting KC, and there's no doubt that was a game that Tani absolutely needed that one because I've already mentioned of how snake bit he's been ever since he's with the Canadian national team. I think ever since he was with the Canadian national team in Copa America. After that, he pretty much did only register one goal. But despite the fact that Tiny had a great game against Sporting KC, Zach Steffen got absolutely wrong. I mean, I've said it before in the review between the Quakes and Colorado. I even said that if Zach Steffen doesn't win Player of the Week, I have a feeling that MLS clearly does not want their goalkeeper winning Player of the Week because it's been a long time since I've seen a goalkeeper win Player of the Week, and with the performance that Zach Steffen has put, and especially with the way that Matt Turner didn't play very well in tonight's game against Panama, especially the goal that he let in, you could argue that he probably should have done better in terms of that winning goal that Panama let in. All of a sudden, Zach Steffen is back in the conversation of potentially be the number one with the U.S. men's national team. And with the way that he's performed this season, there's no doubt it's been a complete 180 compared to last season. It feels like he has finally found his form, and that with the incredible 12 save performance that he had against the Quakes, not only the fact that he maybe be back in the conversation of the U.S. men's national team, but he got absolutely robbed. The fact that with that kind of performance, and this is no disrespect to Tani, with that kind of performance by a goalkeeper, we don't usually see that every week, and especially with the way that nobody scored a hat trick this week as well. I was for sure think that Zach Steffen was going to win player of the week. I think he got absolutely robbed in terms of it. But what do I know? I mean, the goal of the week they voted. I think Alonso Martinez won goal of the week, even though, in my opinion, I think Hassani Dotson got robbed this week himself in terms of that incredible goal that he scored. So I guess it's just maybe popular contest in the end. But now moving on in terms of the next news, and now start to talk about news that may not related to MLS. Well, there are still some news that's kind of related to MLS, starting with Indy 11. So with the way that it feels like Indianapolis is pushing hard for an MLS team, and unfortunately Indy 11 is getting the San Diego Loyals treatment. Well, it seems like maybe they might not go in the same fate as the San Diego Loyals. It seems like Indy 11 is going to still trying to stick around. They're eyeing a MLS alternative. And I think part of that has really changed because of the USL promotion and relegation kind of system. I have a feeling the ownership group of Indy 11 not only maybe finding a new owner, but they want to stay in this USL league where there could be a chance that they could get promoted into Division 1. By the way, when Division 1 does eventually found, I wonder how it would decide which team is going to be promoted into that division. Ideally, I would love to see in the season prior to the launch of USL Division 1 that they'll just have a situation like what we see in other leagues where maybe the top 16 get promoted into this new division, because it's only fair that if you're going to implement the promotion and relegation system in the first season of existing, I feel like they should just do it that way to do so. So I think that's kind of the reason why Indy 11 might be sticking around, because again, USL Division 1 is vying to be a first tier league. It's going to go direct competition with MLS, and there's no doubt that this could be a case where the ownership group is kind of almost giving a middle finger toward MLS, saying that, well, we're very disappointed that you didn't pick us to join MLS, so now we're gonna join this league that is basically going to be the big rival of MLS down the line, and there could be a case where they might actually get into the first tier in a very different way. Again, this whole promotion and relegation, not only it's a watershed moment in terms of U.S. soccer, but it really now change the landscape of American soccer in general, and really they continue to solidify this epic war that is going on between MLS and USL. That we kind of saw this coming a long time ago, with things kind of brewing for the last couple of years. And then Denver MWSL team says that they are going to build a 10K stadium close to downtown Denver. Now this is very important because of the fact that there could be a case where maybe the Colorado Rapids might think about moving into that stadium as well, especially with the way that stadium is way closer to downtown Denver. It's also close to the light rail station. That is definitely a much better location compared to where Dick's Sporting Goods Park is in Commerce City. Again, I've been to that stadium before, and let me tell you how much of a nightmare it is to get there from Denver. And there's no doubt that if the Rapids move closer to Denver, the attendance is going to definitely go up. I mean, this team has been a competitive team the last couple of seasons, and I really think one of the reasons why the attendance has been so bad for them is, well, one, the Rapids hasn't done a great job when it comes to marketing the team to the city of Denver, but also it's just the fact that when they're playing just so far away from Denver, where the only option you can get to that stadium is by driving there. That definitely turned away some of the fans, and I think with this NWSL team coming into the landscape, and there's no doubt that they're going to draw some good crowd because of being closer to the downtown base and much easier to access. I think that really might force the Rapids' hands of saying that, well, once we get the lease expire at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, we might think about just going to be in this stadium, and especially if this stadium does have room to expand, it could be a case where we could see the Rapids maybe moving into to stadium in the near future as well. But now moving on in the next two. So the MLS All Star Game has announced its date. It's going to be on July 23rd. Well, actually, it's been announced for a while now, but we were wondering what is going to be the format of this MLS All Star Game, and it turns out it's been pretty much the same format we have seen 3 out of the last 4 years. It's going to be once again MLS All Star versus Liga MX All Star, and this could also be a game where we might get a chance to see Messi play in the All Star game. We didn't quite see it last year in Columbus because he got injured, and something tells me the tickets price is going to be really expensive once again for this game as well. But yeah, it would be very interesting to see whether he of course play it, especially with this format. I mean, there's nothing wrong with MLS All Star versus Liga MX All Star. I think it's a way better format compared to an MLS All Star against a random European giant during their preseason. But as I have always said many times, I really wish they go back to the East versus West kind of format, or just do what they maybe do with NBA, where they decided to create like a celebrity kind of players or a big former star, maybe pick the team that they had and have an all star game. I mean, that would be fun to see. Though I will also say this: the thing about the all-star game, I can also hear that there are crowds saying that they should just get rid of this in general, because again, I know the all-star game is kind of a very American kind of thing to do, but I do kind of have a feeling that with the way that the schedule has already been so congested as it is right now, there's really no need for them to throw in a random all-star game in the middle of the week, especially with the way that now it's in the middle of the week compared to on the weekend. I remember when the All-Star game used to be on the weekend and how fun that is, but now that it is kind of in the middle of the week and it's kind of sandwiched in between MLS game, it just kind of lost its luster compared to previous year when it was made as a really big thing. Now, moving on into the next news. So the U.S. Open Cup, they have announced, or at least the U.S. Soccer Federation have announced that the U.S. Open Cup will increase its money purse, and the prize money will now actually go up to $1 million, with the winner receiving 600,000 K and the runner-up receiving 250 Ks. That's double compared the previous season, and I like this because again, this maybe could use as a way for teams to push to try to win this competition, especially in USL. That's definitely a lot of money for them to receive. Not so much in MLS. That is, but I think what's also important is that one of the thing they've also mentioned is that the team that made it to the furthest out of their division, they're going to receive a 50,000 bonus. So if you're a team that is based out of an open division, or you're one of those amateur team that go through that 4 rounds of local qualifier and you go the deepest, you can get that $50,000, and that's a lot of money for these amateur team that is basically they barely try to survive in terms of the resources that they have. So yeah, this is definitely big. This is definitely a step in the right direction when it comes to the U.S. Open Cup. And like I said, I don't care what anybody said. I would always love the U.S. Open Cup. I love this competition dearly. Heck, as I mentioned already in the beginning of the video, I am a true sicko in terms of this competition. Forget about March Madness. I want the U.S. Open Cup instead of watching March Madness. And then lastly, in terms of last news, so the USL, they have announced that they could actually expand to Pensacola, and I know that means that there's going to be another Florida team in USL. I have no problem with that because Florida, if you look at the state, it is a state that has a pretty big population as well. And there's been always talks the fact that the USL could be expanding toward the Gulf Coast. I mean, I thought if they were going to go to the Gulf Coast, it's either going to be in Mobile or it's going to be in Pensacola. So they decided to choose Pensacola, and that there's still a lack of detail in terms of so what league it's going to be. I'm assuming it's probably going to be League One, that is, but I think now that as we continue going back to me talk about the promotion and relegation thing that USL is doing, there's going to be a lot of these small community that is really looking forward to join USL, because again, there's could be a case that you can have these small community that could be playing first tier soccer, and you can get the closest experience that we see in Europe and in other leagues, where you can see small town city that could be playing in first tier soccer, which is something that we would never think that was possible unless, of course, you pay an incredible expansion fees to go to MLS, and especially even then MLS won't like the idea because you might have a too small of a fan base. But either way, again, it just goes back in terms of the landmark moment with this promotion and relegation stuff, and that again, I'll definitely maybe make a video about this, maybe even as soon as this week, talking about this whole promotion and relegation kind of system and kind of laid out of how things are going to work out, and maybe that there could even talk about what the future is this going to be, and especially maybe even talk about potentially MLS might be forced their hands to merge with USL because of this landmark moment. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these news, and if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below as always. And also let me know in the comments below and your kind of rant about the US losing to Panama in the semifinal of the Nations League, and get your frustration out of the way as well in the comment section. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.